Chapter 45-33. Yu reminded her, "You need to retract your chin." "Oh," she replied and looked at him. "CEO Qin, you're amazing." Yu smiled. "The power of money." AI Ming Ming bit her lip. "But I think you're better." She looked at him after saying that. Yu smiled warmly. "Really?" AI Ming Ming nodded hard. "Really?" Yu rubbed his chin with his hand and chuckled. "Why do I feel like you look a little silly?" AI Ming Ming was stunned. After a long while, she said in a low voice, "Do you hate me when I look silly?" Yu was speechless for a long time. Then he smiled. "You're really silly, like a pig's brain." AI Ming Ming was even more confused. She was indeed silly. However, when she returned to the room, the renovated place made her feel more relaxed. There was even a bathtub. It was a little extravagant to just work for a few days. AI Ming Ming felt a little uneasy. After all, she had been taken care of. Compared to her uneasiness, Yu was much calmer. He said calmly, "President Qin prepared it for Huan. It's just convenient for us, so don't feel pressured. Just accept it. The entire crew will be treated the same." AI Ming Ming calmed down a little. However, there were still differences in the renovations. Within a day, Huan and Qin Mo's room had been changed to a pink one. Even the bathtub was pink. Huan was a little speechless. Qin Mo smiled. "What's wrong?" Huan walked in and looked around. She turned around and said, "It's all pink." "Qin Mo, are you a little crazy?" Qin Mo chuckled. "What's wrong?" Huan bit her lip. "I mean, you're a man. In a place like this, we're staying here for a few days. Do you think I would allow this if we were staying here?" He went over and hugged her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. Huan was still a little speechless. "I might not like it, but I like it." Qin Mo smiled. "There won't be a chance like this in the future. I don't want such an opportunity." Huan snorted and went to the bathroom. She couldn't wait to take a bath. She was too dirty. She thought that the pink Qin Mo wouldn't want to hit on her, but she really underestimated Qin Mo's moral integrity. Fortunately, after a tiring day, she could still take a bath, although he had taken advantage of her. Huan was even more tired now. She lay down on the soft bed and rubbed her belly. "Qin Mo, can you conjure up something to eat? I'm so hungry." He smiled and made a phone call. After a while, 2 servings of crispy chicken rice arrived. Although it wasn't a big meal, it was a big meal for people who had been eating bread for the whole day. Huan enjoyed the food and smiled at Qin Mo. "Qin Mo, you're so good." Qin Mo smiled calmly and said, "You didn't say that I was good in the bathtub just now. You kept saying that I was bad and hateful." When he said that, his eyes were very clear. Huan's face was completely red. He was too shameless. And at this time, the shameless man even leaned over and whispered naughtily against her earlobe. "Then tell me, am I good or bad?" Huan couldn't utter a single word under that kind of gaze. Chapter 45-34. Huan was dumbfounded. She tilted her head and looked at Qin Mo. After a long while, she said with difficulty, "You're so shameless." "Shameless again?" Qin Mo's voice was amused. "You've changed so quickly, huh?" Huan snorted and patted her stomach in satisfaction. Qin Mo looked at her as if he was looking at a little animal. Actually, she was raised by his family. Unbeknownst to her, the Qin family had already raised her as his wife. It was just that Huan didn't know about it. When she found out, she was frightened and ran away. Now, she was finally back. She was back by his side. Qin Mo reached out and gently stroked her hair. He didn't say anything and just looked at her with that gaze. For some reason, Huan's heart started to beat faster. She looked at him for a long time without saying anything, and her little face blushed a little. Qin Mo smiled faintly and reached out to hold her in his arms. She leaned on his shoulder, feeling a little uneasy, but more than that, she was moved. She thought that she had always liked him, but they had missed each other for many years. At this moment, Huan didn't want to be calculative about the past, the woman he had used to anger him. Nothing else mattered because at this moment, they were hugging each other. After a long while, just as Qin Mo was feeling a little emotional, he lowered his head to say something to her. But just as he lowered his head, he saw that Huan had fallen asleep on his shoulder. He couldn't help but smile, but he couldn't help but look at her. Her fair little face was on his shoulder, and her long eyelashes were covered in a layer of shadow. She looked very cute. Qin Mo's heart was unbelievably soft. He kissed her and said in a very low voice, "Good night." Huan felt a little ticklish from his kisses. She buried her face in his chest and murmured half awake, "Qin Mo, I'm sleepy. Stop kissing me. Aren't you tired of kissing me?" After saying that, she buried herself in his arms and continued to sleep. Qin Mo lowered his head to look at his little fellow. There was an indescribable feeling in his heart. He lowered his head and kissed her again, then carefully placed her on the big bed. He still had some things to do. Time was too tight. He almost had no time to sleep. Late at night, Qin Mo sat alone at a simple desk, drinking a cup of coffee that didn't taste good while doing Huan's work. When he finished his cup of coffee, he lowered his head and looked at it with a frown. Then he started to miss Qin Shen's hand-ground coffee. What was he drinking now? Although it tasted terrible, Qin Mo still poured himself another cup and drank it with patience. It wasn't until 1 o'clock at night that he was almost done. Qin Mo stretched and turned his head to look at Huan. Huan was sleeping soundly. She hugged the quilt and buried her face in the pillow. A strand of beautiful black hair peeked out from the pillow. Qin Mo went over, took off his sweater, and lay down beside her in a shirt. The conditions were much better today, and Huan slept much more soundly. Although it was very late, Qin Mo couldn't bear to sleep when he saw her sleeping. He just lay there and watched her quietly. Huan slept very soundly, but she could probably feel the warmth from his body. She gently leaned against him and finally directly leaned into his arms. Probably because it was comfortable, Huan sighed and finally buried herself deeper in his arms. Type Panda Literature into the search engine, and you will find this site. Thank you. Chapter 4531. War Between Us. Qin Mo. How are you? Chapter 4535. The expression on Qin Mo's face became much gentler. He kissed her and went to sleep with her. Just like that, filming at the border for about 4 days was completed ahead of schedule. Huan watched as Qin Mo edited the last part. She had already seen the first part and was very impressed and amazed by President Qin. Qin Mo was really a genius. After wiping out all of AI Mingming's previous scenes, the sense of the story was not affected at all. Instead, it made the atmosphere a little more tense. When he added in the content from the past few days, it was not abrupt. Moreover, AI Mingming acted very well and was at the peak of her acting skills ever since she entered the industry. Huan lay behind Qin Mo and bit her lip gently. She said softly, "Qin Mo, it feels perfect to reshoot the scenes when we return to the city." Qin Mo pulled her hand from his shoulder and smiled. "Hubby, am I awesome?" Huan hummed in acknowledgement and said sincerely, "You're amazing." Qin Mo laughed. It was a deep and infectious laugh. Huan's face was a little red. There were many people around, so she leaned closer and said in a very low voice, "It's Zero's awesome." This time, he was even happier. He looked at her from the side, then took her little hand and pulled her in front of him. He let her sit by his leg and watched the film again. AI Mingming's documentary was placed at the end, so it would not affect the viewing. When they were done, Qin Mo lowered his head and asked softly, "It's all right? It's all right." Huan's face was red as she said softly. There was a hint of admiration in her voice and expression. Qin Mo laughed softly again and packed his things. Tonight's private plane will return to the city at 2 o'clock. We will gather at Entertainment Studio 6 at 6 in the morning. Is everyone okay with that? After saying that, he looked at Rongyu and said, "You don't have to go tomorrow. I'll get someone to pick AI Mingming up first thing in the morning." He knew that Rongyu's health had always been poor, and he had probably been suffering for the past few days. Huan looked at Qin Mo and felt a little touched. Qin Mo was actually very considerate, especially to people who had nothing to do with him. He knew that he was doing this for her. Of course, Qin Mo knew what she was thinking. He pursed his lips and smiled. He didn't say anything and just led Huan to the car. Of course, the others were also picked up by a private car. Back to the city. It was already the 8th day of the new year. Huan and Qin and Mo hadn't seen Yi Huan for a few days. They originally wanted to bring Yi Huan back, but they had a lot of things to do, so they put it on hold. When they returned to the apartment, Yi Huan fell asleep almost immediately. However, Qin and Mo couldn't sleep. He had to deal with some matters in the entertainment industry. After all, he hadn't been in the company for a few days. After he was done, it was 3 in the evening again. They still had to stay up all night, but the coffee was a little better. Qin and Mo rubbed his forehead. He was very sleepy, but he wanted to sit alone for a while. He lit a cigarette and stood in front of the French window, looking out at the night sky. It was 3 in the morning, and the sky was much lighter. He stood there alone, enjoying the rare moment of solitude. Yes, it was rare. Ever since Yi Huan returned to his side, Qin and Mo had almost forgotten what it felt like to be alone. Now it felt good. In fact, he already knew that AIG's new movie had already grossed more than 100 million, and Twin had yet to pass the screening. The situation was very unfavorable, especially if this movie couldn't make a comeback. Then AI Meng Meng wouldn't be able to clear her name. Tip: type Panda Literature into the search engine to find this site. Thank you. Chapter 4532. War Between Us. Qin and Mo. How are you? Chapter 4536. Qin and Mo was under a lot of pressure. He smoked quietly, his brows furrowed. It was possible to fake the box office, but if it was not a huge hit, everything would be for naught. Qin and Mo stood there until 4 o'clock in the morning. Then, he took a quick shower and lay down on the bed. As soon as he closed his eyes, he fell into a deep sleep and almost overslept. In the morning, Yi Huan was the first to wake up. She sat up with her messy hair. She looked down at Qin and Mo and reached out to push him. It's time. Qin and Mo opened his eyes. He had not woken up yet. He reached out to pull her into his arms and kissed her. Is it time? Yi Huan lay in his arms. Her face was a little red and her hair was messy. She said softly, it's time. Qin and Mo, when did you sleep? Your eyes are a little red and there seem to be some fine lines. Although it was time, Qin and Mo did not care too much. He lay on his arms in a relaxed manner. So, Yi Huan said pitifully, so I'm not that handsome anymore. So you think I'm handsome? The man smiled happily and reached out to pinch her little face. Yi Huan cried out, if you pinch me again, I definitely won't be handsome anymore. She reached out to slap his hand away and turned to run away. Although Qin and Mo reached out to catch her, she still escaped. Yi Huan stuck her tongue out at him at the bathroom door. Qin and Mo, you can get up now. He looked at her and smiled. Come here and let me kiss you again. It's too late. You arranged the time yourself. Yi Huan said like a little lamb. However, she still came over and kissed his lips. She half knelt in front of him and said in a low voice, all right, can you get up now? Qin and Mo smiled and kissed her for a long time before letting her go. His voice was extremely hoarse. I'll make it up to you tonight. Yi Huan blushed a little and ran to the bathroom. Qin and Mo noticed that her body seemed to be much better, and her face was often ruddy. Maybe she could let Qin Shun see that they might be able to have another child. Qin and Mo was in a much better mood. He got out of bed and went straight to the bathroom. He picked up Yi Huan, who was brushing her teeth, with one hand and brushed her teeth with the other. This series of actions made Yi Huan speechless. She could only let him hold her and brush her teeth. When she was done, she couldn't help but complain. Qin and Mo, I'm already 32 years old. Qin and Mo smiled. In my heart, you are still a little girl. Yi Huan pursed her lips and glared at him. Really? And Mo smiled and put her down. Don't you think so? Yi Huan stuck out her tongue and laughed. I don't think so. But after saying that, she felt that something was wrong. After a long time, she remembered that the way she spoke seemed to be something that only a little girl would do. Yi Huan bit her lips and didn't say anything for a long time. Qin and Mo smiled and pinched her little face. Change your clothes. We'll have breakfast in the car. Yi Huan nodded. She thought about it and asked him, is the driver driving? Qin and Mo replied naturally, I'm driving. Yi Huan bit her lips. You can't let the driver drive. You only slept for a few hours. Your eyes are still red. As she said that, she reached out to touch his eyes. Her expression was especially serious. And Qin Mo's heart warmed. He raised his hand and grabbed her hand. Huan was shocked and wanted to move away, but he didn't let her. He held her hand and let her feel his warmth. Chapter 45:37. Qin Mo's heart warmed. He raised his hand and grabbed her hand. Huan was startled and wanted to move her hand away, but Qin Mo didn't let her. He held her hand and let her feel his warmth. Huan bit her lip, didn't move, and didn't make sound. She just looked at him. Qin Mo's eyes seemed to be dyed with a layer of darkness. He also looked at her quietly. Once he thought he got everything he wanted, but now he knew that there were more wonderful things in this world than getting what he wanted. There was a trace of emotion in his eyes. His warm palm was pressed against her, and his voice was also low. Huan, I guess you love me, don't you? Huan simply couldn't digest what he had just said. She could only stare at him helplessly. He lowered his head and said in a hoarse voice, "Say something." Huan felt that she had seen the world. At least Huan accepted Qin Mo's confession several times. But now, she was not calm at all. Her heart was beating fast because he was going to reciprocate. Not only like, but also love. Huan bit her lip and stammered. "It'll be too late. Should we go now? We can still go by helicopter, so we..." Qin Mo raised his hand and looked at the time. "We have half an hour." Of course, he lied to her. Huan was the kind of person who would rather do something sooner than later. After hesitating for a moment, she nodded. Probably because she was too nervous and shy. Her eyes were watery, as if she was bullied by him. But Qin Mo wasn't satisfied. He pinched her little nose and said, "You have to say it." Huan suddenly got angry and said in a low voice, "I'm hungry, and you still want to force me to confess? Qin Mo, you're almost 40. Can you wake up a little?" Her look made him laugh, and he reached out and touched her little face. "Hungry?" She still stared at him. "I'll let you try." He smiled, put his coat away, and led her downstairs. They bought breakfast at a breakfast shop. Qin Mo parked his car by the roadside, and Huan got out of the car to buy breakfast. Fortunately, they didn't have to wait in line since it was early in the morning. Soon, she came back with 2 sets of breakfast and handed one to Qin Mo. "Finish it before you leave." Qin Mo wanted to go immediately, so he shook his head. "I'm not hungry. Let's go." Huan stopped him and said in a low voice, "Qin Mo, you don't need more time. Besides, aren't you President Qin? It doesn't matter if you're late." Her heart ached for him. All these years, he had been working the hardest, sleeping the least, and doing the most difficult things, all for her. Huan felt the need to discipline him. Well, she was Mrs. Qin, so she had the right to discipline him, so she tried to be fierce. She didn't know how other wives disciplined their husbands, but this was the only way she could think of. Qin Mo looked at her with a strange look and said in a low voice, "But disciplining me? Yes." Mrs. Qin's voice was obviously bluffing, and her appearance, in his eyes, was extremely cute. He smiled and reached out to stroke her hair. "Pretty good. In the future, you have to maintain it." Huan blushed. In fact, she didn't know why she was blushing. However, under his gaze, she was a little embarrassed. Maybe this was the feeling of falling in love. Chapter 45:38. When they arrived at Studio 6, they busied themselves for the entire morning. By noon, they were almost done. Huan was very satisfied. She handed the film to Qin Mo, then looked at him and said, "It's already the 5th today. There's still 9 days left. Qin Mo, will we fail miserably?" "I don't know if we will fail miserably, but if we don't do anything, we will definitely fail miserably." He smiled and carelessly reached out to stroke her hair. "So after lunch, I'll edit the last bit and send it for approval. Anyway, it's in B City. There shouldn't be any problems after the approval today. After that, we can release it again. We won't change it. We'll release it on 214. What do you think?" Huan asked worriedly. "Will we make it in time? The film will take 2 hours. Even if you send it at 3, we might not make it in time." Qin Mo looked at his little wife and smiled. "Silly." He reached out to stroke her hair again. "How can there be such a silly little girl like you?" As she said that, Huan bit her lip. "I'm telling the truth." Qin Mo smiled again. "They can work overtime." Huan let out a cry, her expression and gaze a little dazed. After a long time, she muttered softly. Your identity seems to be very useful sometimes. You just realized? He laughed softly, his voice very pleasant. Hee-Hwan glanced at him, turned around, and ran off. Let's go eat. Chin Mo followed behind her. After a while, he grabbed her hand and dragged her to his side. Hee-Hwan turned her head. Chin Mo smiled slightly. Take my car. They ate at a restaurant with a good environment. However, Chin Mo had too many things to do, so he only stayed for half an hour before returning to King Entertainment to settle the final matters. After that, Chin Mo personally made a call. After communicating with the other party, he hung up. Hee-Hwan looked at him. It's done. Chin Mo looked at Hee-Hwan and thought for a moment. I'll get the driver to send you back. Wait for me at home, okay? Hee-Hwan nodded. Sure. Chin Mo smiled and called secretary He-Over to arrange a car for him. He was about to leave when Hee-Hwan stopped him. I'll go with you. He looked at her. I'll see you out. I'll ask the driver to take me home and wait for you there. Hee-Hwan's tone was gentle, but there was also a hint of dominance in it. You're very tired. Don't drive. Chin Mo stared at her and said in a low voice, Is this Mrs. Chin's way of disciplining Mr. Chin? Hee-Hwan snorted. Whatever you say. Chin Mo smiled and didn't object. They went downstairs and got into the black limousine. Chin Mo told him the address and leaned back in the seat. He closed his eyes and said, I'm going to sleep for a while. Oh, Hee-Hwan replied. Just as she was about to say something, he had already reached out to hold her hand and said in a low voice, Don't move. Just stay with me for a while. Hee-Hwan's face turned red, and she didn't say anything for a long time. She probably felt his emotions, so she carefully leaned her little head on his shoulder. Chin Mo's eyes opened a slit, and he looked at her before closing his eyes again. He reached out and swept her into his arms. His throat was extremely hoarse as he said, Let me sleep for a while. Don't mess around. Hee-Hwan's voice became soft and low. I'm not messing around. I'm a good girl. Chin Mo closed his eyes and smiled. His smile was mature and charming. It was the unique smile of a man of his age. New wife number 1. Hubby addicted to spoiling. New wife number 1. Hubby addicted to spoiling. My phone is the fastest to update. Chapter 45-39. Chin Mo closed his eyes and smiled. His smile was mature and charming, which was unique to men of his age. Hee-Hwan was also tired. She leaned on his shoulder and closed her eyes. I'm going to sleep for a while, too. I'm so tired. Chin Mo, she fell asleep quickly, while Chin Mo was only a light sleeper. He lowered his head and looked at her with a gentle gaze. The car drove steadily until they reached the place for the trial. Hee-Hwan was still asleep. Chin Mo looked down at her for a while before telling the driver, Wake her up when we reach the apartment and send her to the door. He was afraid that Hee-Hwan wouldn't be able to enter the apartment because she was too sleepy. The driver nodded. Okay, President Chin. I'll come and wait for you after I'm done. Chin Mo didn't say anything. He opened the car door and closed it quickly. He didn't look at Hee-Hwan again, afraid that she would catch a cold. She hadn't been feeling well for the past few days. The driver waited for him to get out of the car and left. After they left, the driver looked at Hee-Hwan's sleeping face in the rearview mirror and turned up the air conditioner in the car a little. Hee-Hwan changed her position and continued to sleep. She woke up about an hour later. She opened her eyes and looked around. The driver turned around. We're here. President Chin said that he won't be worried until I send you upstairs. Hee-Hwan snorted. I'm a grown-up and not a kid anymore. Uncle Zhao, you go first. She put on her coat and opened the door to get out. Mr. Zhao didn't leave, nor did he follow her. He felt a little annoyed. He had watched Chin Mo and Hee-Hwan grow up together. He was happy to see them like this. However, he also noticed that Hee-Hwan's keys were left in the car. He just sat there and waited. He even took a sip of hot tea. As expected, Hee-Hwan ran down after a while. Her face was a little red. Uncle Zhao. Mr. Zhao opened the car door. What happened? Hee-Hwan got in the back seat. Where are my keys? I might have dropped them in the car. She looked for them for a long time, but couldn't find them. She was a little anxious. She couldn't disturb Chin Mo now. Did she have to sleep somewhere else? Hee-Hwan thought about it and wanted to grab her hair. At this moment, a bunch of keys appeared in front of her, and she waved it. Is this it? Yuan bit her lower lip. Yeah, he was pleasantly surprised. But after a while, he realized that he had been tricked. He cried out twice and ran away. After a while, he turned back and said, Uncle Zhao, you are too bad. You are as bad as Qin and Mo. Old Zhao smiled and looked at He-Yun's back. Then he sighed softly. He had been waiting for this day. It wasn't easy. These two little ones had been fighting for many years, and they had finally reconciled. It was really good to watch. After old Zhao sighed, he chuckled again. Yeah, that's great. On the other hand, He-Huan returned to her apartment. The moment she opened the door, she felt very sleepy and tired. Her body felt like it had been overdrawn, and she could not describe the feeling. She didn't do anything. She just wanted to lie down, and she really did. Lying on their big bed, she felt that she could sleep for 3 days and 3 nights. When she woke up, night had already fallen. He-Huan woke up and looked at the neon lights outside the window. For a moment, she couldn't come back to her senses. She couldn't tell where she was or what time it was. In fact, she didn't even know how she and Chinamo were doing. It took her about 10 seconds to sort out. When she woke up, she thought about how they had separated in the afternoon and couldn't help but smile. Like new wife number 1. Hubby, addicted to pampering. New wife number 1. Hubby, addicted to pampering. My phone was the fastest to update. Chapter 4540. Just the thought of it made her smile. He-Huan suddenly missed Qin and Mo very much. She grabbed her phone and saw that it was already 8 o'clock. Even if he worked overtime, it wouldn't be late. She wanted to call him, but she decided against it. She still wanted to ask, so she dialed old Zhao's number. Old Zhao told her that Qin and Mo was socializing with a bunch of old guys and might not be free. He might also come back very late. He-Huan replied with an "oh" and hung up. She could understand. It wouldn't be right if she didn't socialize with someone who let him in through the back door. Thus, she thought about it and decided to cook something herself. Her cooking skills were neither good nor bad. Living alone, she always had a little skill, and He-Huan's little skill was cooking instant noodles. Just as He-Huan was thinking about which flavor to cook, Qin and Mo called. He called from outside the private room. He had drunk some wine, so his handsome face was steaming. He-Huan answered his call and swiftly put the pancake in the boiling water. She was very swift and had done it thousands of times. Qin Mo's voice was low and hoarse. You're awake? He-Huan was busy cooking noodles. Her phone was clipped to her ear. She smiled and said sweetly, Qin and Mo, how did you know I was cooking noodles? Qin and Mo leaned against the aisle and said in a low voice, Why don't I know what you're like? Other than instant noodles, what else can you make? You're looking down on me. He-Huan's voice was so sweet that it seemed like honey was dripping out. Qin and Mo smiled and said in a low voice, Aren't you going to ask me about the results? I believe you, she said sweetly. Qin and Mo smiled again. Why? Because you're Qin and Mo. He-Huan was like a little lamb, dragging out her voice to please him. Qin Mo's heart skipped a beat. In fact, over the years, there were too many people who flattered him. He had already grown impatient to listen to flattering words, but now that He-Huan said it, he was in a particularly good mood. Perhaps it was because she was He-Huan. Not because of anyone else, but because she was He-Huan. Qin Mo's Adam's apple moved slightly, and his voice became even lower. You're getting better at saying nice things. He-Huan put away the noodles and said, Then come back early. I'll cook noodles for you, and I'll say nicer things to you. After she finished speaking, Qin and Mo chuckled again. After laughing for a while, he said softly with a hint of teasing, I'm waiting for your instant noodles to taste how delicious it is. He-Huan felt that he was hateful. She stuck out her tongue and said, Then you should come back soon. Qin and Mo didn't want to go back to the private room to eat with those old men, but his natural restraint made him end the call. When he was about to go back to the private room, he saw AI Jia standing on the other side of the aisle. Qin Mo's eyes darkened. He didn't want to say hello and want to go straight into the private room. At this moment, he still felt that those old men were more adorable. AI Jia's voice was a little fragile. Qin and Mo, don't you even need to say hello to me? Qin and Mo froze. After a long time, he turned his head and looked at her quietly. Why did you come back? Qin and Mo, I also have my freedom, don't I? AI Jia's face was still fragile, and she looked like a white lotus, like new wife number one. Husband addicted to spoiling. New wife number one. Husband addicted to spoiling. My mobile phone updates are the fastest. Chapter 45-41. At this moment, he still felt that those old men were more adorable. AIG's voice carried a touch of vulnerability. China Mo, don't you even need to say hello to me? Chin Mo's body froze. After a long time, he tilted his head and looked at her quietly. Why did you come back? China Mo, I also have my freedom, don't I? AIG's face was still fragile. She looked like a white lotus. Chin Mo smiled faintly, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. He watched her walk over slowly and stood up straight. Anyway, they had already touched. AIG kept walking to him and looked up at him slightly. Weren't you so cold before? You weren't so scheming before. Unable to leave, Chin Mo simply lit a cigarette. AIG immediately coughed. Chin Mo stared at her and didn't put out the cigarette in his hand. When a man was heartless, he was really heartless. AIG's face was a little painful. I just want to ask you for a favor. Chin Mo continued to stare at her, his expression calm and collected. AIG licked her lower lip and said with some difficulty, I want to marry Chin Lu. As soon as she finished speaking, Chin Mo threw the cigarette but on the ground and stamped it out. Then he looked at her as if she was crazy. AIG, you're crazy. Chin Lu is gone. Your parents don't know, do they? She smiled softly. Her smile was strange, with a touch of childishness that made people's hair stand on end. This was the peak of AIG's acting skills. Even 10 AI Ming Ming wouldn't be her match. Chin Mo knew her well. He was not easy to deal with. He said in a low voice, You're threatening me. No, it's a request. AIG could still be gentle under his intense gaze. She was definitely a powerful character. Of course, Chin Mo didn't buy it. He just threw a few words at her. Stop dreaming. Really? AIG smiled softly. It seems that you're not on my side in this matter. Chin Mo chose to leave directly. After entering the box, he was not in a good mood. He let out a long sigh and calmed down after a long time. Those old guys had already benefited from it. Seeing that Chin Mo was in a bad mood, they didn't have the mood to entertain him. They were all smart guys, so how could they not see through it? Chin Mo was the god of fortune. He gave him face by visiting occasionally. After all, the Chin family and the Yi family were in a good relationship. Who dared to offend the Yi family? Then, the old guys let Chin Mo leave. Chin Mo was not unreasonable. He drank 3 cups of wine as an apology and then left. Sitting in old Zhao's car, old Zhao could tell that something was wrong with him. He asked softly. Things didn't go well. He was an elder of the Chin family, so it was reasonable for him to say a few words of concern. Like Annie Lan, he was considered Chin Mo's elder. Chin Mo leaned back in his seat and let out a long sigh. Then he said in a low voice, Things are going well, but we encountered some small problems. He held his phone in his hand and touched it gently. He was thinking, to Chin Mo, his parents were very important. Moreover, as he got older, he missed Chin Lu more and more. No news was not good news. If AIG made a scene, he was afraid that his parents wouldn't be able to take it. Chin Mo closed his eyes. When he opened them again, his facial features were as cold as a world of ice and snow. After a long time, he finally dialed a number. It was AIG. What are your conditions? AIG was still in the parking lot of the hotel. She was wearing a red dress and had long hair. She was very beautiful, and her voice was even more seductive. Chin Mo, are you talking about conditions now, or are you begging me? New wife number 1. Hubby, I'm addicted to pampering. New wife number 1. Hubby, I'm addicted to pampering. Mobile phone updates are the fastest. Chapter 45-42. Chin Mo stared at AIG. After a long while, he said faintly, I never beg anyone for anything. AIG, if it's a condition, then even if it's a good one, it's not the kind of condition you're thinking of. It's either be honest or don't blame me for being ruthless. AIG was very sure at first, but now her expression changed completely. She looked at Chin Mo as if she had never known this man before. He had never been so heartless to her before. His intention was very clear. He wanted to kill her. Aigia's lips moved. After a long while, she said, I don't believe it. You can try and see if you're more important or He Huan. Qin Mo's voice was very cold. To me, you're just a memory of the land of Qin, while He Huan is the woman I'm going to be with. Aigia, you're overestimating yourself. To the Qin family, you're a stranger and you're not welcome. After saying that, Qin Mo turned around and walked to his car. In the night, his back was slender. He reached out to open the car door and quickly got in. Aigia still hadn't come back to her senses until the car left. In the car, Qin Mo rested his chin on his hand. Although he was very tired, he didn't close his eyes to rest. However, Lao Zhao saw it and asked softly, That was Miss AI, right? I've taken her to and from the company twice. She's quite pretty. Qin Mo was a little absent-minded at first, but then he thought of something and said to Lao Zhao, Don't tell He Huan about what happened today. Lao Zhao showed his loyalty and smiled. Of course I won't tell anyone. After pausing for a moment, Old Bull looked at the rearview mirror and coughed softly. Qin Mo, is that Miss AI someone from outside? Uncle Zhao, what are you thinking about? Qin Mo said speechlessly. After a pause, he seemed to remember something and said lightly, Actually, she's related to the Qin family. When he said that, his voice was a little bleak. Lao Zhao didn't have the guts to ask again. As the car drove on, Qin Mo sat in the back seat with a dark expression. After some time, the car finally stopped in front of the apartment building. Old Zhao parked the car and said softly, We're here. Qin Mo put down his hand and wiped his face. We're here. What time is it? Old Zhao's voice was a little low. It's almost 12 o'clock. It's so late. Qin Mo took his coat and got out of the car. I'll drive tomorrow. Uncle Zhao, you can rest for the day. Old Zhao nodded and followed him out of the car, watching him enter the entrance. Qin Mo entered the elevator, and the doors slowly closed. He leaned against the elevator wall and quietly looked at the mirror. His reflection in the mirror reflected another face. It was a face that looked almost the same as his, but was no longer in this world. Land of Qin. Qin Mo closed his eyes slightly to hide the pain in them. However, the pain was short-lived because the elevator soon reached his apartment on the top floor. At this time, He Huan should be awake and waiting for him. Before he got out of the elevator, Qin Mo adjusted his emotions and walked out slowly. When he reached the door opened and He Huan's little face popped out. Qin Mo, did you drink a lot? I didn't. Qin Mo smiled faintly and reached out to press her little head down. Then, he said in a low voice, Isn't it dangerous to come out like this? It's already late at night. Like new wife number 1, hubby addicted to spoiling. New wife number 1, hubby addicted to spoiling. The updates were the fastest. Chapter 45-43. Of course not. Qin Mo smiled faintly. He reached out to press her little head down and said in a low voice, Isn't it dangerous to come out like this? It's already late at night. He Huan bit her lip. It's okay. There are surveillance cameras. I know you're back. After the door closed, she frowned at him. You smell like smoke and alcohol. Would you like to smell for perfume? There was a hint of amusement in Qin Mo's voice as he pressed her into his arms. Little doggy, take a whiff and see if it's there. He Huan felt like she was suffocating. She cried out in his arms, Qin Mo, you're so bad. Qin Mo was very happy. Are you going to say it or not? Huh? He Huan got out his arms and bit her lip pitifully. Should I be happy that you're drinking and smoking? As she said that, she tugged at his sleeve and said in a low voice, Look at you. You've been working so hard these days. Now you're smoking and drinking. Do you think I won't worry about you? You care about me. Qin Mo smiled and his brows relaxed. He Huan was furious. She glared at him and said, Qin Mo, you're so bad. He didn't know how many times he had asked this question, but he just couldn't find an opportunity. He was so bad. Qin Mo smiled and said, All right, help me cook a bowl of noodles. You can cook whatever flavor you like to eat. He Huan muttered, Didn't you say that instant noodles are unhealthy? Kissing is unhealthy, but there are still people who do it. Qin Mo smiled faintly and patted her. Go, I'm really hungry. Oh, Huan nodded and left eagerly. When she went downstairs, Qin Mo took off his coat and walked to the French window. He lowered his head and lit a cigarette. He rarely smoked at home, especially when Huan was around. But today he felt very annoyed. He didn't care about AI Jia, but if he was ruthless to AI Jia, he didn't know if Qin Lu would blame him. Qin Mo leaned against the back of the sofa and looked outside quietly. He actually didn't smoke much. He only lowered his head and was about to put out the cigarette when Huan came over and bit her lip. You're smoking again. I'm a little annoyed. Let me have a smoke. Qin Mo's voice was hoarse. Huan bit her lip and did not say a word. She just put the noodles on the dining table and said, It's done. I also added a ham. Qin Mo smiled faintly, then followed her over and sat down. The instant noodles in front of him were especially fragrant after Huan cooked them. Anyway, it was a little different from usual. Qin Mo took a deep breath. It smells good. Of course, I've done it many times. Huan sat beside him and handed him the chopsticks. Here, try it. Qin Mo smiled and ruffled her hair before eating. Good girl. I'm not a kitten or a puppy. Huan snorted and pushed his hand away. Don't be like this. Then what do you want me to be? Qin Mo smiled. Kittens and puppies are good too. They don't have to worry. Huan sat beside him and held her chin with one hand. She looked at him quietly. After a while, she said in a low voice, Qin Mo, is there something on your mind? I feel that there's something wrong with you coming back today. Everything has been settled, hasn't it? His gaze deepened and he smiled. Yes, it's all settled. New wife number 1. Hubby, I'm addicted to spoiling. New wife number 1. Hubby, I'm addicted to spoiling. My phone was the fastest to update. Chapter 45-44. Then what do you want me to be? Qin Mo smiled. Actually, kittens and puppies are pretty good too. You won't have to worry about them. Huan sat beside him. She supported her chin with one hand and looked at him quietly. After a while, she said softly, Qin Mo, is there something on your mind? I feel that there's something wrong with you coming back today. Everything has been resolved, hasn't it? His gaze became a little deep. After a while, he smiled and said, Yes, everything has been resolved. He ruffled her hair again. I'll eat the noodles. Do you want to sleep first? I'll wait for you. Huan's voice was as cute as a little lamb. Qin Mo just smiled and didn't object. He ate very quickly but very elegantly. This was probably a habit brought about by his birth. Huan looked at him quietly. She thought that Qin Mo was actually very good, but she didn't understand why he insisted on her. When the words insisted on her came out, she was a little stunned again. Insisted on her? So, it was because of her. Huan pursed her lips and then looked at him. There was a touch of moisture in her eyes. Qin Mo finished the last mouthful of noodles and looked at Huan. Why are you looking at me like that? Huan's voice was very soft. Qin Mo, why me? His voice was low and hoarse. It was also a little wet. Why would you ask that? Huan bit her lip. I just want to ask you why me. Isn't this not scientific? Qin Mo smiled. Huan expressed that it was so. Qin Mo reached out and knocked her. He smiled and said, Is love something that can be solved with science? We were so young back then. How could there be love? Huan mumbled and then looked at Qin Mo eagerly. Qin Mo patted her head. How old was I when you had your first period? Huan actually remembered it, but she wanted to pretend that she didn't know. Because he was too despicable. When she was so young, he already had some kind of love for her. Who knew if he had other feelings for her? Huan pretended that he didn't remember. He held his head and groaned. Either he had a headache or he had forgotten. Qin Mo didn't know what to do with her. He reached out and knocked on her little head. Are you stupid? You're only 19 years old. In ancient times, you could be a father at this age. Hearing that, Huan asked him directly, Then who are you going to have a baby with? She couldn't give birth. Therefore, he had someone else in mind. Qin Mo's gaze was fixed on her, his eyes sparkling. After a while, he chuckled. I can wait for you. For some reason, Huan blushed. Seriously, he was too shameless. It was as if someone was begging him to bear a child. Qin Mo stared at her blushing face and laughed. He teased her intentionally. What's wrong? Are you unhappy? He-Huan harumphed. Why would I be unhappy? I'm fine. He laughed and then pinned her little face on his shoulder. He said in a husky voice, He-Huan, I only have you. I don't have anyone else. I didn't really do anything with those women who made you angry in the past. He-Huan froze in his arms. She didn't expect him to say this. This had always been a thorn in her heart. She tried hard to convince herself not to care about it. But today, Qin Mo removed it himself. He told her that those women were fake. Chapter 45-45. He-Huan suddenly had an indescribable feeling in her heart. It was sour and sweet, and even she couldn't describe it. She raised her eyes and looked straight at Qin Mo. He was sitting at the dining table, and there were still traces of him going out to socialize. However, his expression was very gentle, and the words he said were even gentler. He-Huan bit her lip, looking helpless. Qin Mo smiled, and his voice was very light. Why? I thought you would be very happy when I said this. Why do you look so silly? After a long time, she finally came back to her senses. She licked her lips and said in a slightly low voice, Qin Mo, I don't know. You didn't tell me this before. Qin Mo's eyes had a trace of a smile. He reached out and rubbed her hair. You pig brain. What's the point of saying it? I remember I said it more than once. He-Huan bit her lower lip again, and her lip almost bled. Stop biting. It's going to hurt if you bite it. He touched her face and said in a low voice. He-Huan responded with a and looked rather silly. Qin Mo smiled slightly. Okay, let's go to sleep. Oh, He-Huan replied with another grin. You look even dumber now. Where's our mighty and awe-inspiring director He? You're going to eat me, He-Huan said. Qin Mo smiled happily. It doesn't seem to be a problem. I'm your husband, aren't I? He-Huan didn't know what she was mumbling, but Qin Mo patted her. I'm going to take a shower. You go to sleep first. I want a hug. He-Huan immediately acted like a spoiled child, and she even took the initiative to put her arms around his neck. Carry me. My feet hurt, and I can't walk. Qin Mo was speechless as he lowered his head to look at her. His voice was gentle, helpless, and doting. He-Huan, you're already a grown-up, and you still want someone to hug you. Qin He-Huan doesn't even want someone to hug her anymore. Although he said that, he still carried her to the bedroom. He-Huan hugged him and said in a sweet voice, But I'm your wife. Didn't you say that I'm little Mrs. Qin and you should spoil me for the rest of my life? Qin Mo pressed his forehead against hers and said in a hoarse voice, Yes, you're right. What I said was right. As He-Huan spoke, she couldn't help but kiss him. She was a little shy because she rarely took the initiative to get close to him. Qin Mo's expression became gentler. He hugged her and walked to the French window to look at the night sky with her. Careful not to move, she snuggled into his arms. After a long time, she whispered to him, Qin Mo. Qin Mo snorted through his nose. He-Huan looked up at him. Qin Mo, have you ever regretted it? He lowered his head and said in a low voice, How could that be? Never. She didn't ask anymore. In fact, the answer was very simple. It was because she was worth it, because there was only one He-Huan in this world. If she missed it, there would be no more. After that, they didn't talk anymore. They just looked at the night sky outside together. Occasionally, a meteor would pass by, like the path they had walked. He-Huan said in a low voice, Qin Mo, we'll always be together, right? Yes. He laughed softly and then pressed against her. He didn't say anything and just pressed against her. It felt good to be together. Even if they didn't do anything, it was still good. As the night sky brightened, He-Huan fell asleep in his arms. Qin Mo carried her back to the bedroom and carefully placed her on the bed. Looking at her sleeping face, his heart warmed. Like new wife number one, hubby addicted to spoiling. New wife number one, hubby addicted to spoiling. My phone was the fastest to update. Chapter 45-46. As night fell, He-Huan fell asleep in his arms. Qin Mo carried her back to the bedroom and carefully placed her on the bed. His heart warmed as he looked at her sleeping face. As long as she was by his side, everything seemed to make him feel at ease. At that moment, he realized that they weren't just in love and marriage. She, He-Huan, was still a part of his life. She was irreplaceable by others. Qin Mo straightened his body and covered her with a blanket. Then, "You want to take a quick shower?" He didn't return to the bedroom directly. Instead, he went to the living room to smoke 2 cigarettes while looking out at the night sky. He was still alone in the same place, but with Yihuan around, he didn't feel so lonely anymore. Later, when he was sleeping, he whispered into Yihuan's ear, "Don't leave again, okay?" No one could answer him. Yihuan was in a deep sleep, and his breath was sweet, just like her when they were young. These days, Qin Mo was really tired. But at that moment, she was like a baby beside him, and he couldn't fall asleep. He couldn't bear to sleep. He clasped her hand and interlocked his fingers with hers. How long was a lifetime? He was almost 40 years old, and he wanted to spend all his time with Yihuan. He wanted her to be happy. He wanted her to work, but he couldn't bear to do it. Firstly, it was hard. Secondly, he couldn't bear to part with her. He wanted to see Yihuan every day. Qin Mo smiled faintly and closed his eyes. In the morning, Yihuan opened her eyes. Qin Mo was no longer in bed. She immediately sat up, rubbed her eyes, and called out Qin Mo's name. After about half a minute, he walked over. He was wearing a set of home clothes and looked very nice. He leaned against the door and said softly, "It's almost 10. I'll take you back later." Yihuan said, "It's almost 10. She paused before asking him softly, "Oh yeah, where are we going?" "Xiaoyuan." Qin Mo's voice was calm. "Go pick up Yihuan and Shunting." Yihuan was stunned for a moment before she came back to her senses. She looked at Qin Mo blankly. "Is that the child you were talking about?" Qin Mo didn't say anything and just smiled. Yihuan immediately understood that the child was called Shunting. She covered her face and said, "So fast." Qin Mo said calmly, "Actually, it's not that fast." Yihuan didn't know that when he confirmed that she couldn't have another child, he had already started to choose. He was indeed unhappy. Yihuan still couldn't accept it, but she couldn't change anything. This was the Qin family's perverted rule. She wiped her face and sat up. "I'll be fine soon." Qin Mo looked at her and said with a smile in his voice, "Calm down later." Yihuan snorted. "How am I not calm? I'm not a country bumpkin who hasn't seen the world." Qin Mo glanced at her and then said somewhat happily, "But I feel like you still haven't seen the world." He snorted again to make her understand what he meant. Yihuan did understand. She blushed and lifted the blanket to go to the bathroom. "I don't want to talk to you anymore." Qin Mo smiled and walked out first. Yihuan brushed her teeth, washed her face, and changed into a set of clothes before going downstairs. Qin Mo sat at the dining table and waved at her. "Come here." She nodded and sat down obediently. After a while, she seemed to have thought of something. "Qin Mo, what does he look like?" "New wife number 1. Hubby addicted to spoiling." "New wife number 1. Hubby addicted to spoiling." My phone is the fastest to update. Chapter 45-47. Qin Mo took out his phone and swiped a photo. Yihuan was still a little shocked when she saw the photo. She murmured, "This kid is so good-looking." Qin Mo nodded and then said in a low voice, "There are about 20 kids. He's the best-looking and the best in all aspects." Yihuan let out a long sigh. "I just think it's a little cruel. If he falls in love with Yihuan and Yihuan doesn't like him, won't that be very painful?" Qin Mo's voice was indifferent. The education he received will help him adjust himself. That was how cruel it was to live in a wealthy family. He continued, "From now on, he'll accompany Yihuan for 3 years. He'll go abroad when he's 16 and come back when he's 20. If anything happens during these 4 years, no one will be responsible for it. He can only rely on himself, whether it's his career or his love life." Yihuan listened to him in a daze. After a while, she said in a low voice, "Why would he be willing?" Qin Mo smiled. "This path that you think is cruel can save him 30 years of hard work. No one can resist such a temptation. It's just a matter of whether he's qualified or not. And Shunting is the lucky one, just like you." Hearing this, Yihuan realized that she had fallen into his trap. It turned out that he was just praising himself. Yihuan glanced at him and said in a low voice like a little lamb, "Qin Mo, you're so thick-skinned." He smiled. put his phone away, and urged her to eat breakfast before they went out together. When Yi-Hwan got into the car, she was still worried. Is there any problem with the screening? What problem could there be? Chin and Mo smiled. It's just a matter of greeting. Yi-Hwan was relieved when he said that. She didn't say anything else and sat down peacefully, letting him drive. An hour later, the car arrived at Shio Garden. Before Yi-Hwan could get out of the car, little Yi-Hwan ran over. She looked like a little boy, but she couldn't help acting like a spoiled child. Mommy. Yi-Hwan hadn't seen Xiao Shui for a few days. She missed him so much that she couldn't help but pick him up and kiss him. Did you miss Mommy? Little Yi-Hwan nodded vigorously. Yes. Yi-Hwan smiled. Mom missed you too. After saying that, he kissed her again. But at this time, he realized that there was a young man about 13 or 14 years old standing on the steps. Although he was only 13 or 14 years old, he was already about 170 and he looked really good. Yi-Hwan was a little angry. She turned her head and whispered to her husband, "The photo you showed me was taken by Shun-Ting several years ago, right?" The one in front of him was completely different from the one in the photo. Chin Mo was a scheming guy. Chin Mo chuckled softly. Then, his voice was very calm. I didn't say it's a current photo. Yi-Hwan was speechless. He was really shameless to the extreme. She tried hard to calm down, put down Yi-Hwan, and held her little hand to walk to Shun-Ting. She asked in a low voice, "Your name is Shun-Ting, right?" Shun-Ting nodded calmly. "Yes, I'll live with you from now on." He paused for a moment. After all, he was a young man, and there were some things that he was embarrassed to say. Yi-Hwan smiled gently. "Call me Annie from now on. Call me Uncle Chin Mo." After saying that, she reached out and stroked Shun-Ting's hair. No matter how calm he was actually a child who was not even 15 years old. Like new wife number 1. Hubby, addicted to spoiling. New wife number 1. Hubby, addicted to spoiling. My mobile phone is the fastest to update. Chapter 45-48. When Shun-Ting heard this, he smiled lightly. His smile was very pretty, and he called him Uncle and Annie. Chin Mo liked this child very much too, so he came over and put his arm around his shoulder. "All right, let's go in." However, Shun-Ting turned around and took Yi-Hwan's small hand and held it in his palm. Yi-Hwan's little face was filled with surprise. She looked at her handsome little brother and then at her father. Chin Mo went over and squatted down. He said in a low voice, "Yi-Hwan, you'll be under Shun-Ting's care from now on. You have to call him Big Brother, okay?" Yi-Hwan was still confused. Is Big Brother Daddy and Mommy's son too? Chin Mo smiled. No, but he will live with us from now on and take care of Yi-Hwan. Of course, Daddy and Mommy will take care of him too. Do you understand, Yi-Hwan? Yi-Hwan pursed her pretty little lips and looked at Shun-Ting. She then said very softly, "Is he the same as Big Brother Xiangnan?" This question hit the nail on the head. Chin Mo thought about it and answered her, "He is the same." Yi-Hwan frowned. She felt that her husband was simply too shameless. How could he say something like this? What kind of values did he want to cultivate in Yi-Hwan? Yi-Hwan bit her lip and disagreed. However, they were very close now. She could not do anything to Chin Mo and could only glare at him. Chin Mo chuckled. "Mrs. Chin, why are you staring at me?" Yi-Hwan ignored him and went into the living room. In the living room, almost everyone from the Chin family had gathered. They were here for Shun-Ting to enter the Chin family. Shun-Ting didn't enter the Chin family casually, but he had status. In the future, even if he wasn't with Yi-Hwan, he would still be considered as Chin Mo's half-son, as long as he was outstanding enough. Sure enough, the formal ceremony was held at noon. Shun-Ting served tea to all the elders and also received many greeting gifts. Of course, he also prepared a gift for Yi-Hwan. It was a pony that he had personally made. It was wrapped in pure sheepskin and embedded with many small gems. It was especially beautiful. Yi-Hwan liked it very much and played upstairs happily. After Shun-Ting was done with the adults, he went upstairs to spend some time alone with little Yi-Hwan. As soon as he went upstairs, the adults downstairs began to cordially chat. Chin Shun, in particular, was most interested in her. Watching the youngster disappear upstairs, he took a sip of his coffee and said lazily, "His temperament is really good, and he looks good too." I heard that his schoolwork is even better. His piano skills are no worse than when Yuan's. He's only in his teens. How could the family bear to let him go? Qin Mo smiled and didn't say anything. Actually, the Shun family wasn't bad, but they had quite a number of males with good potential. When Qin Mo was choosing people, the Shun family had arranged the males in a row. The last person was Shun Ting. Shun Ting was the least proactive, but after seeing Yi Huan's photo, he changed from being reluctant to being with her to being willing. And Qin Mo could understand this feeling very well. Perhaps his elder brother, Yi Muyun, could understand it even better. Qin Mo smiled faintly. He's not bad. He looked at his sister with a strange gaze. It's not like he's not allowed to go home. His surname is still Shun. If Yi Huan were to be with him in the future, King Entertainment might be under the surname Shun, if his ambition was big enough and his means were good enough. These were all unpredictable, but Qin Mo was willing to take the risk. Like new wife number 1. Hubby, addicted to pampering. Please bookmark. New wife number 1. Hubby, addicted to pampering. Play bar updates the fastest. Chapter 45-49. After Qin Mo finished speaking, Qin Shen sighed. Qin Mo, it's really not easy for you. The Qin family had many children, and Yi Huan couldn't bear more. They could have picked one from the side branches, but each family had their own business, and no one came to take over King Entertainment. In the end, it was up to the adorable Yi Huan to shoulder the burden. Qin Shen wasn't stupid. The Qin family and the Yi family had an agreement, but such an agreement could change even if they got married in the future. Hence, Shun Ting's existence was very necessary. Qin Mo was really sinister. Qin Shen thought of this and looked at his brother again. Qin Mo had already gone to pour Yi Huan some milk. Qin Shen sighed secretly. Shun Ting's future was going to be difficult. His opponent was Yi Xiangnan. The Yi family's children were all not easy to deal with. Internally, there was still Yi Huan. It was hard to say whether Yi Huan would grow up to be strong. No matter what, Shun Ting was a special existence. His relationship with Yi Huan wasn't like that of Yi Muyun and Tang Xie back then. Qin Mo was much more unkind than Tang Yu. But no amount of worry and speculation could stop the little warmth upstairs. Shun Ting pushed open a children's room. It was a pink world. Qin Yi Huan was wearing a little boy's clothes, but she was obsessed with the pony. She was swaying back and forth happily. Shun Ting walked over and bent his knees beside her. He said in a low voice, "You like it a lot?" Yi Huan was still swaying back and forth, looking especially happy. She looked up at Shun Ting with her big and cute eyes, as if there were many little stars in them. Shun Ting's gaze landed on her little face. He looked at her quietly. The youth's face and eyes seemed to be filled with a vast starry sky. It was very deep and so calm that it didn't look like something someone his age should have. He gazed at Yi Huan and finally reached out to touch her eyes gently. He said in a low voice, "Your eyes are very beautiful." Little Yi Huan shook her head but didn't avoid him. Instead, she asked him curiously, "Brother, do you think my clothes are ugly? The kids in the kindergarten all say that my hair is ugly, like it was gnawed by a dog, and my clothes are ugly." Shun Ting smiled. "As long as you like it." Yi Huan opened her eyes wide and seemed to be thinking. After a while, she nodded heavily and said, "I think so." Shun Ting smiled again and touched her head. Yi Huan smiled at him and called him Big Brother after a while. He corrected, "Brother Shun Ting. Is there a difference?" Little Yi Huan, who was only 7 years old, did not understand this at all. Shun Ting did not intend to tell her about his intentions. After all, she was too young. She was probably the kind that would hug a milk bottle at night. At the thought of this, he laughed. What a little girl, but it didn't matter. He could slowly wait for her to grow up, and, in the process, he could do a lot of things. Moreover, Shun Ting knew about the existence of Yi Xiangnan. Such an existence was a lot of pressure for a man, let alone a youth. However, he was rarely calm. This was also the reason why Qin Mo chose him out of so many people. In B City, Shun Ting's excellence was also one of the best, and such an outstanding youth fell in love with Yi Huan at first sight. He was willing to gamble with everything he had, and he would not lose. Never, never. Like new wife number 1. Husband, addicted to pampering. New wife number 1. Husband, addicted to pampering. The updates were the fastest. Chapter 4550. He didn't explain too much to Ihuan. He just reached out and stroked the little girl's hair. Ihuan was still playing happily. In the end, she didn't want to play anymore, and Shunting carried her down. Little Ihuan looked at him eagerly. Brother Shunting, you're so tall. He nodded. I'm a high school student now. She exclaimed again. Actually, she didn't know what it meant for a 13-year-old Shunting to go to high school. However, she was still young and didn't understand. He didn't care too much. He just wanted to accompany her. Looking at her busy little figure, seeing how happy she looked, and seeing how she was dressed like a little boy with her hair cut short, he knew that she was doing this for a boy called Yi Xianan. He was a little younger than him, equally outstanding, and had a proud family background. It wasn't that Shun Ting didn't care. He was just a teenager, and he had learned to endure. This was probably the price he had to pay. Between riches and Qin Huan, he would rather choose Qin Huan. However, he knew that if he couldn't fulfill a certain requirement and obtain riches, he wouldn't be able to have her. 3 years. He would accompany her for these 3 years. Ihuan didn't understand what he was thinking. She only knew that little big brother was very good-looking and she liked him very much. Later, Shun Ting held Ihuan's hand as they went downstairs for lunch. Although it looked like he was holding a little boy's hand, they looked very harmonious when they were together. Everyone in the Qin family saw this and couldn't help but agree with Qin Shen's words. This child, Shun Ting, seemed to have a very noble air. When it came to a big family like the Qin family, they were very well behaved. Qin Amlin naturally sat at the head of the table. On his left and right were Qin Mo, Qin Shun, and Qin Mu respectively. On Qin Mo's side, the important seat was not Ihuan, but Shun Ting. Ihuan sat beside Shun Ting. She looked so cute and needed care. Shun Ting was young and outstanding, but he had never taken care of anyone before, let alone a baby. But he was very proper, and very attentive. Very quickly, he skillfully took care of Ihuan without batting an eyelid, as if he was very ordinary. Even Ihuan did not realize that she was being taken care of. She ate happily and seemed to be happier than usual. The adults did not make a sound, quietly sizing up the quiet youth. Shinting was really calm. In front of so many big shots in the business world, he was really impressive. After dinner, the men of the Qin family gathered together. Qin Amlin kept saying, the younger generation will surpass the older. Then he looked at his son. Qin Mo, what are your plans? Are you going to be like your elder brother? Qin Mo did not answer and only smiled faintly. Ihuan happened to be at the door and heard it too. She was a little surprised and even more shocked. She had more or less guessed it. She subconsciously called his name. Qin Mo turned his head and saw Ihuan. He smiled faintly. Why are you here? Where are Qin Mu and the rest? Oh, they're still having afternoon tea. They just wanted me to ask if we were having dinner here or going back separately, Ihuan said softly. Qin Mo's voice was low. Go back and eat. Bring the kids to the villa later. Ihuan nodded and went out. When she walked out, she saw Shun Ting standing there. She was stunned for a moment. Like new wife number 1. Hubby, addicted to pampering. New wife number 1. Hubby, addicted to pampering. My mobile phone updates are the fastest. Chapter 4551. Qin Mo's voice was low. Let's go back and eat. We'll bring the kids to the villa later. Ihuan nodded and headed out. She saw Shun Ting standing there the moment she stepped out. Ihuan pursed her lips slightly and said gently, We'll be going home soon. Oh yeah, did you bring any luggage? Shun Ting said yes and quickly brought the luggage down. Ihuan had probably been a mother for a long time. She realized that he only had one suitcase, so he must have brought very few clothes. She thought about it and said, Uncle Qin and I will bring you to get some clothes later. You can take a look at the decorations in the bedroom. You can change them if you like them. Shun Ting did not reject her. It was not because he was a demanding person, but because he wanted to enter this family. He could not be too polite. Moreover, it was still the holidays. They could get to know each other better if they went out together. He was a stranger to Annie and Ihuan. Shun Ting's agreement made He Huan heave a sigh of relief. She was afraid that this child would be too outstanding and arrogant. Now that he was easy to get along with, she felt more at ease. Moreover, what she heard in the study made her take note of Shenting. After all, Qin Mo might choose Shenting. Moreover, Yi Huan was with him day in and day out, so she wanted to distance herself from him. Yi Huan realized that her mind was in a mess, and she could not wrap her head around it. Finally, they got into the car. She sat in the front while the two kids sat in the back. Yi Huan was probably a little tired from playing. She leaned on Shenting's shoulder and called out, "Big brother," before falling asleep comfortably. Shenting lowered his head. The young man's clear eyes flashed with warmth. He gazed at the little thing for a moment before looking up. Then, he could not help but reach out and touch her hair. It was short but soft. Yi Huan saw all this from the rearview mirror. She looked at Qin Mo worriedly. Qin Mo noticed his wife's worried gaze and gaze. He smiled and placed his hand on the back of her hand to comfort her. Yi Huan wanted to ask something, but she remembered that the two kids were in the back seat, so she held back. Qin Mo drove the car to the villa under Yi Huan's name. He opened the car door and got out. He wanted to hug Yi Huan, but Shenting had already opened the car door. Yi Huan's coat was already on and buttoned up. Shenting carried little Yi Huan, who was asleep, out of the car carefully. He was very tall, and although he was a little thin, it seemed very easy for him to carry a little baby. Yi Huan wanted to say something again, but this time, Qin Mo put his hand on her shoulder and smiled. "See, it'll be easier now. We have a little helper." Shenting walked in front. The young man's slender back seemed especially tall and strong, and also very noble. Shenting asked softly, "Is Yi Huan's room on the second floor?" The servant stammered, "In the far east." Shenting nodded and went up. Yi Huan and Qin Mo stood downstairs and watched anxiously. Yi Huan sounded like she was dreaming. "Qin Mo, does this look familiar?" Qin Mo clearly knew, but he pretended not to know. He smiled and said, "Oh, is it familiar?" Yi Huan bit her lip and looked at her husband silently for a while. After a long time, she said in a low voice, "You clearly know, but you are still pretending. You are the best at pretending." Qin Mo was a little amused and asked deliberately, "How am I pretending?" New wife number 1. Hubby addicted to pampering. New wife number 1. Hubby addicted to pampering. My phone was the fastest to update. Chapter 45-52. He once snorted, "I don't want to talk to you." "Who are you going to talk to if you don't want to talk to me?" Qin Mo chuckled. "Oh yes, Yi Huan won't wake up until 2 hours after her afternoon nap. You should take a nap too. You must be exhausted after all these days." Yi Huan nodded and looked at him. "What about you? Do you want to take a break too?" Qin Mo smiled. "Okay, I'll take a nap with you." Although it was an afternoon nap, Yi Huan still took a shower first. She changed into a bathrobe and walked to the vanity to apply some skincare products. Qin Mo, who was originally leaning against the sofa, came over and leaned over from behind. "You're going to do all this too?" Yi Huan said softly while putting on the makeup. "I ate too much oil at noon. I'll feel better after taking a shower." She thought about it and turned to look at Qin Mo. "What are you thinking? Are you going to give Yi Huan to Shenting?" Qin Mo looked at his little wife. Yi Huan still looked young, but he was already preparing for Yi Huan's future. He had a plan this way. Qin Mo thought for a while and said in a low voice, "Do you know why Shenting?" Yi Huan didn't say anything and waited quietly for his answer. After a long time, Qin Mo said slowly, "Because Shenting has our negative blood. That's the main reason he won. Of course, he's also excellent, more excellent than anyone else, but that's why I noticed him." Yi Huan felt that it was cruel. She put down the skincare products in her hand and asked softly, "Does Shenting know?" "He knows." Qin Mo hugged her from behind and said in a low voice, "Yi Huan, it's not cruel. It's just a probability. It means that there's a high chance they'll be together in the future." He had given up on Yi Xiangnan because of his blood type. Besides, Yi Xiangnan's identity meant that he couldn't give up everything for Yi Huan, but Shenting could. That was cruel. He didn't tell Yi Huan about it, because he didn't want to scare her. Yi Huan was still in a daze and did not speak for a long time. Qin Mo smiled. Relax, the children are still young. This is also a matter for the future. You are too impatient to think so much now. He-Huan looked at him and said in a low voice, You've already brought Shun-Ting back, yet you say that I'm anxious. It's obvious that you're the anxious one. Chinamo just smiled and comforted her for a while before coaxing her to take a nap. When she fell asleep, he couldn't fall asleep. It was Shun-Ting's first time here, so he had to go and take a look. Finally, she found him in Yi-Huan's room. Chinamo stared at her silently for a while before whispering, I'm going to check out your room. Shun-Ting looked up and immediately stood up. Uncle. Chinamo smiled and went out first. Shun-Ting took another look at the little cutie before he quietly followed him and carefully closed the door. His room was next to Yi-Huan's. It was also a suite with a bathroom, changing room, and a study. It was very well equipped, and the servants had already packed his luggage. Just as Yi-Huan had expected, there weren't many clothes, just a few sets of clothes. The room was decorated in a more mature style, not the lively style that the youngster usually liked. If you don't like it, you can get someone else to change it. Also, arrange for your room to be renovated in every villa. You will be with Yi-Huan, Chin-Imo said calmly. And Shun-Ting understood what he meant. Like new wife number 1. Hubby, addicted to pampering. New wife number 1. Hubby, addicted to pampering. My mobile phone updates are the fastest. Chapter 45-53. After Chin-Imo said that, Shun-Ting was still unfazed. Thank you, Uncle Chin. Chin-Imo treated him as though he was a man. He put his arm around the young man's thin shoulders and said with a hint of a smile, We're a family now. Don't call me uncle and add my surname to make us seem distant, don't you think? Shun-Ting smiled faintly again. Uncle. Good boy. Chin-Imo patted his head. Rest for a while. Your auntie said she wants to bring you around. You've been busy for the past few days. Let's relax together. You might not have the time to do this in a couple of days. Shun-Ting nodded. Chin-Imo smiled again and left. When he returned to the bedroom, Yi-Huan was still asleep. Chin-Mo was a little tired from all the work he had done for the past few days, so he laid down beside her. Yi-Huan actually woke up. She opened her eyes in a daze and leaned over. Where did you go? Chin-Mo rested his head on her pillow and smiled. I want to see the kids. He lowered his head and looked at his little wife in his arms. He caressed her hair and said in a gentler voice, Sleep for a while more. I haven't had a good night's sleep for days. Yi-Huan nodded, closed her eyes, and went to sleep. She had a dream. She dreamt that she and Chin-Mo were old but very happy. When she woke up, he was beside her. However, his black hair and handsome face did not seem like it was in the dream. Yi-Huan woke up from her nap. Her voice and expression were very gentle. She leaned on his shoulder and said softly, Shun-Ting is a good kid, Chin-Mo. I'm just worried. Chin-Mo still had his head lowered and looked at Yi-Huan. After a while, he smiled. Why? You've only met him once, and you're already feeling sorry for him? Yi-Huan looked at him. Chin-Mo. His tone became more serious as he lowered his voice. Shun-Ting is a good kid, but you said that they're still young and they might not be able to be together forever, right? Yi-Huan bit her lip and said softly after a long while, I guess so. Chin-Mo lay down, closed his eyes, and then slowly said, Didn't you say that Yi-Huan is too tired? Shun-Ting can be considered a successor. He can handle it. Yi-Huan was surprised and shocked. She stared at him in disbelief. Chin-Mo smiled. What's wrong? Yi-Huan covered her eyes. How could you be willing? Mom and Dad, as well as Chin-Shun and Chin-Mu. How could they be willing? Chin-Mo laughed. First of all, you didn't object to it. Why would they object? Everyone has their own business, and Shun-Ting is loyal to the Chin family, so the shares will always be in Yi-Huan's hands. However, if she marries Yi-Xiang-Nan, then the management of King Entertainment will be entirely in Shun-Ting's hands. Of course, if Yi-Huan marries Shun-Ting, then that's another matter. He paused for a moment. This is my compensation for him. Living with the Chin family since he was young wasn't easy. Shun-Ting had to endure all the hardships that Chin-Mo had suffered. 3 years later. If they weren't suitable in the future, Shunting would suffer a huge emotional trauma. Huan said in a low voice, "If it were me, I'd rather choose a more ordinary life." But he's Shunting, an ambitious man. Moreover, he likes Huan. Qin Imo smiled gently. This love is enough to support him until he becomes the real boss of King. Huan said in a low voice, "But I still find it unbelievable. Like new wife number one. Hubby addicted to pampering. New wife number one. Hubby addicted to pampering. My phone was the fastest to update." Chapter 45-54. Chinamo smiled and pinched her nose. "All right, don't be surprised. It's almost 5 o'clock. Mrs. Qin, you should take the kids out for a walk. You promised Shunting, didn't you?" Huan nodded. "Yes." Then, she got up and tidied up a little. By the time she came out, Chinamo was ready. The two kids were even more agile when they went downstairs. Huan stood neatly by Shunting's side, looking very cute. As Huan and Chinamo walked downstairs, she couldn't help but whisper to Chinamo, "Isn't it too unkind to let Shunting take care of Huan?" Chinamo smiled. "He's enjoying it." Huan couldn't bear it anymore. She looked at her husband and said, "Are all the men in the Qin family perverts? Why do you like them? They were raised since they were young." Chinamo smiled again. "Why? Are you unhappy with the current situation?" Huan snorted. "How can we be the same? We've known each other since we were young. How can you?" Since it was time to go downstairs, Huan shut her mouth. Chinamo chuckled softly. "Why aren't you saying anything?" Huan couldn't take it anymore. "Chinamo, don't go too far." Chinamo was still smiling happily. He walked to Shunting. "Your aunt said I went too far. She's probably in a bad mood because she's angry." Huan didn't dare to be like this in front of the kids. She glared at Chinamo and then looked at Shunting with a gentle expression. "Don't listen to him. I'm fine." Chinamo chuckled. "Mrs. Qin, have you learned how to change your face?" Huan was furious. She glared at Chinamo again. Mr. Qin didn't feel any pressure, but Shunting smiled. Gun Yinshin's smile was so charming that little Huan, who was standing next to him, could not help but drool. Shunting lowered his head and asked softly, "What happened?" Little Huan raised her little face and said pitifully, "Gidge, you're so good-looking." Shunting sighed. "It's brother Shunting." Qin Huan was still very stubborn. "Brother." Shunting couldn't help but ask, "Why brother?" 2 words are easy, but 4 words are so tiring. Huan looked at him with a curious gaze, her big eyes sparkling. Shunting smiled. "So that's how it is." Sure enough, you can't use normal thinking to judge a 7-year-old child. A trace of warmth slid through his heart, and he couldn't help but reach out to touch the little fellow's little head. His voice actually carried a trace of hoarseness that didn't match his age. "Then do you like Big Brother?" "I like it," little Huan said and then hugged his arm, looking as cute as a koala bear. Chinamo smiled and walked out with Huan. He said in a low voice, "Shunting, bring Huan to the car." Shunting looked down and rubbed the little fellow's little head. "Okay, let's go." Huan hugged his arm and skipped to catch up with him. When they got into the car, the little fellow also stuck to her big brother. Huan must have been lonely for a long time. Huan sat in the front seat and noticed the situation in the back seat. She couldn't help but think to herself that if her body allowed it, she should have another child. No matter how good Shunting was, he might still be Huan's husband in the future. Like new wife number one, hubby addicted to spoiling. New wife number one, hubby addicted to spoiling. My phone was the fastest to update. Chapter 45-55. She had always wanted Huan to have a brother or sister. Suddenly, she understood Qin Mo's way of doing things. A person who grew up with Huan was indeed more suitable than Yi Xiangnan to be Huan's husband. Huan pursed her lips and took one last look at Qin Mo. Then, she said in a low voice, "Perhaps this arrangement is good." "My selfishness," he said, with a smile and a hint of meaning. Huan rolled her eyes at him and said, "Please be more serious in the future." Qin Mo smiled and didn't say anything else. He started the car. The car slowly drove away and went straight to a plaza at the highest end of B City. They had a meal first and then strolled around to aid digestion. Shunting followed beside them, holding little Yihuan's hand. No one would suspect that they were not a family. It was very natural. Because they had to pick out clothes for Shunting, they went straight to a fashion brand. Because it was men's clothes, Yihuan sat and rested while Qin and Mo picked out clothes for Shunting. Shunting was very good-looking and looked like a hanger no matter what he wore. The brand was not bad, so Qin and Mo was not stingy with money. He picked out a few sets for winter and spring and asked the staff to send them to the villa. Later, they went to a few more stores and carefully picked out some household items for Shunting. In fact, Qin and Mo might not usually do these things, but Shunting was different. He had to let Shunting have a sense of belonging to a family. At the same time, such kindness was also a kind of pressure and burden. But Shunting could bear it. This was something Qin and Mo naturally knew. Of course, Shunting used his own card because Qin and Mo had registered a credit card for him to use. It was about 10 million yuan a year. Other than school fees and daily living expenses, he could invest the rest of the money. Shunting already knew a little, and Qin and Mo emphasized on teaching him. With Shunting's aptitude, he was able to draw inferences very quickly. Hence, Shunting paid for little Yihuan's clothes, toys, and school fees. Even when he was abroad, he would send clothes back to her. After shopping for Shunting's clothes, Shunting carried Yihuan to the toy store and bought her a small water gun. It was a small water gun. Qin and Mo was very calm, but Yihuan was shocked that her little girl was playing with a water gun. She wanted to say something, but Yihuan was in Shunting's arms. She was holding the water gun and pretending to shoot. She was very happy. What else could she say? Qin and Mo reached out and hugged his wife, telling her to calm down. If he wasn't calm, what else could he do? After all, Yihuan was playing so happily. What else could Yihuan say? She just let her be. After returning home, Shunting brought Yihuan to her bedroom to take care of her. Yihuan entered the room and looked at Qin and Mo. Aren't you being too lenient? Shunting is very outstanding, but he's a child himself. Can he take care of a child? Qin and Mo laughed. Why not? Don't I still have you? Yihuan glared at him and sighed. Look at you. Now that you've given up control, there's no room for me to interfere. You'll have to give Yihuan a bath later. Shunting can't do it. Qin and Mo laughed again. Yihuan glared at him. Easy for you to say. Yihuan said that she wants to be independent now that she's grown up. She wants to bathe herself. Only then did Qin and Mo find it interesting. He touched his head and asked, did she say that? Like new wife number one. Hubby, addicted to pampering. New wife number one. Hubby, addicted to pampering. My phone is the fastest to update. Chapter 45-56. Only then did Qin and Mo find it interesting. He touched his head and asked, did she say that? She even said that brother Shunting taught her. Yihuan said unhappily and glanced at her husband unhappily. Qin and Mo smiled and suddenly pulled her to sit on the sofa. He made her a cup of fruit tea and said in a low voice, before Yihuan turns 12, she will do whatever she wants, just like before. Yihuan was stunned for a moment and then suddenly understood. She exclaimed softly, is this Shunting's condition? Yes. Qin said indifferently and then looked at Yihuan. Both parties are equal in the contract. Yihuan, this will never change. Yihuan didn't say anything and just sat quietly. After a while, she looked up at her husband. Qin and Mo, I just think that Yihuan still has many years to grow up, at least 10 years before we know what she is thinking. After all, she is still so young. I'm afraid that Shunting will have nothing in the future. Men either have a career or have love. They can't have it both ways, you know. Qin and Mo fooled his wife to his heart's content. Yihuan wasn't an idiot. How could she not know what he was thinking? She snorted. Qin and Mo, what about you? Your career is not bad now. Do you have to sacrifice love? He smiled. We are an old couple. Love is nothing. Besides, are we the same as others? Yihuan glanced at him and said, shameless. What else could she do? He was actually right. Perhaps the best way to let Shun Ting integrate into the Qin family was to marry Yihuan. Yihuan sighed and shook her head. I can't manage it. Qin Mo smiled. Shun Ting will only manage it for 3 years. You have to continue managing it for the next few years. When Shun Ting comes back, Yihuan will be 13 or 14 years old. He suddenly remembered that Yihuan was probably going to go abroad at that time. He couldn't help but sigh softly. Then he said to Yihuan in a low voice, time passes very quickly. Yihuan has grown up. We're probably getting old too. Even if I want to be shameless to you in the future, I probably won't be able to say it. Yihuan was speechless. She wanted to say something, but gave up. She yawned and said, I want to sleep. Qin Mo immediately expressed that he was also sleepy. Yihuan looked at him and asked suspiciously, You don't have a job? Mr. Qin's expression was very strange. Then he reached out and pinched her cheek. Little heartless thing. Yihuan looked at him. I've worked hard for you for so many days. Even a cow needs to rest and feed it grass. Qin Mo said in a low voice. Yihuan smiled. Then I'll feed you some grass later. He reached out and rubbed her hair. All right, take a shower. I'll go check on the children. He nodded. Okay, I'll wait for you. So good. Qin Mo smiled. His voice was slightly hoarse with a smile. Yihuan blushed. Then she bit her lip and said in a low voice, That's not what I meant. Then what do you mean? He chuckled. You could tell me properly. Yihuan was speechless. President Qin was satisfied. Then he went to the children's room to check on Yihuan. Yihuan was still swaying on the pony. Shun Ting was sitting on the carpet beside her. He was reading a book while accompanying the little girl. The scene was super heartwarming. Qin Mo raised his hand to look at the time. It was still early. Moreover, Yihuan was not in school. The two children hit it off, so he let them spend a little more time together. Like new wife number 1. Husband, addicted to spoiling. New wife number 1. Husband, addicted to spoiling. My mobile phone updates the fastest. Chapter 45-57. Qin Mo raised his hand to look at the time. It was still early, and Yihuan wasn't in school. The two kids hit it off, so he let them spend a little more time together. He had come in quietly, and he had left quietly. In the children's room, it was quiet. Yihuan was on the pony, holding a water gun, and shooting. Shun Ting would occasionally look up at the cute little girl. Back then, Qin Mo had shown him Yihuan's long hair, which made her look like a doll. When he saw Yihuan, he was a little shocked. She looked like a little boy, but she was still unbelievably beautiful. Shun Ting really wanted to hug her more. In the past, he never knew that he would like dolls, but he restrained himself no matter how much he liked them. It wasn't just because he didn't want to scare the doll. Another reason was that this doll wasn't completely his now. She almost belonged to Yi Xiangnan. Even if he had the right to compete, he knew that he was still very far away from that step. Shun Ting was a very practical boy, and he was always very clear-headed. He accompanied Yihuan and suddenly put down the book in his hand. He smiled and asked, You don't like your hair before? I don't like it anymore. Yihuan said in a childish voice as she rocked the pony. She looked indescribably cute. Shun Ting smiled lightly again and reached out to tug at her hair. You don't want to wear a little skirt anymore? Yihuan shook the pony again and again. The water gun in her hand was no longer being. She kept looking at Shun Ting, frowning as if she was thinking about something. Shun Ting patiently waited for her to arrive. Finally, little Yihuan's tightly pursed lips opened her mouth. She seemed to be very cautious, but at the same time, she seemed to be sharing a secret with her best friend. Because I think Big Brother Nan likes girls like Aunt Qin. Shun Ting's heart skipped a beat. He knew it. Although there was an indescribable feeling in his heart, he still said in a low voice, But most boys still like girls with long hair. Yihuan looked at him blankly, as if she didn't understand. Her big eyes were adorable and clear. Shun Ting couldn't stand it, so he reached out and touched her eyes. He said in a low voice, So silly. I'm not stupid. Yihuan snorted. The baby is very smart. Shun Ting smiled again. It was a very gentle smile. At this moment, his eyes were so gentle that they seemed to contain the entire galaxy. However, she was still too young and did not understand. She was still at the age where everything Big Brother Xiangnan said was the right thing to do. Shun Ting cared, but he could only endure it. He could only let go of his concerns and wait. This was the price he had to pay. Qin and Mo had told him about Yi Xiangnan and the various possibilities of his future, the best and the worst. But in Shun Ting's heart, he only accepted the best. If not, he might not want anything. With that thought in mind, he looked at the little girl again and sighed. Go take a shower and you can sleep. It's 9 o'clock. It's time for the smart baby to sleep. Yuan got off the horse and sat on the carpet like him. Shin Ting didn't say anything, but his heart couldn't help but throb. After a long time, he said in a low voice, Do you want to ask something? Yuan said pitifully, Why do I always dream of Brother Xiangnan? Why do you dream of him? Shin Ting asked softly, Like new wife number 1. Hubby, addicted to pampering. New wife number 1. Hubby, addicted to pampering. My phone is the fastest to update. Chapter 4558. Yihuan said matter-of-factly, I like Big Brother Xiangnan. Shun Ting sighed again. If you like it, then grow your hair long. Yihuan looked at him adorably. After a long while, she said unwillingly, but Big Brother Xiangnan said he likes girls like Aunt Qinshin. Shun Ting sat next to her and looked at her quietly. After a while, he suddenly smiled. What about you? Yihuan turned her chubby little face to the side, her eyes wide open. She was only a child, after all, so she didn't understand what Shun Ting wanted to express. Shun Ting tugged at her short hair and said very softly, Don't you like pretty dresses? Why do you want to change yourself according to other people's preferences? Yihuan was happy, and her big cute eyes were full of exploration. After a while, she opened her pretty little mouth. Yeah, I obviously like it. Then, her breath seemed to stop as she murmured, I want to throw all these clothes away. Why do you want to throw them away? Shin Ting said very slowly and gently, These are all your choices, and it's a waste to throw them away. After wearing them, change into new ones. Yihuan was still very dry. She tugged at her hair. It's so short. After all, she was only a few years old. When she came back to her senses and thought about it, she actually burst into tears. Her voice was earth-shattering. Shun Ting was a little helpless, but there was a hint of sweetness in this helplessness. He muttered the word little wimp, and unfortunately, it was heard by a certain little wimp. Thus, he cried even louder. Shun Ting suddenly felt a little helpless. He didn't expect a little girl to be like this. So delicate. He had no choice, and his heart really ached for her. So he carried the little one in his arms and comforted her. Big boys usually didn't have much experience in taking care of children. It was useless to coax her, and the little one cried even louder. Qin and Mo returned and gently pushed open the door. He saw his little daughter lying on Shun Ting's shoulder, crying so hard that her little body trembled. It was indescribably pitiful and somewhat hateful. Little Yihuan really cried sadly. It would take at least half an hour for her to stop crying. Mr. Qin thought about it for a while and finally decided to give this troublesome little girl to Shun Ting. Anyway, she would be Shun Ting's wife in the future. If he didn't coax her, who would? Thinking of this, the heartache and guilt in Qin Mo's heart lessened. Without batting an eyelid, he left. Shun Ting was coaxing the little fellow when he inadvertently raised his eyes and saw Qin and Mo. He narrowed his eyes and smiled helplessly after a while. He looked at the water doll in his arms with slight disdain. Even your father doesn't like you anymore. Water doll, who was crying in the storm, suddenly raised its eyes and stared at Shun Ting. After that, she burst into tears. Papa doesn't dislike me. Shun Ting smiled. An indescribable joy rose in his heart, but he felt a little annoyed to see her crying. In the end, he still kissed her little face. All right, don't cry. Big Brother has kissed you. Little Yihuan covered her little face and looked at him pitifully. After a while, she cried again. Big Brother kissed me indiscriminately. Teacher said that girls can't be kissed by boys indiscriminately. Shun Ting's heart was soft. He reached out and hugged her again. After coaxing that little thing for a long time, he finally coaxed her. Like new wife number 1. Husband, addicted to pampering. New wife number 1. Hubby, I'm addicted to pampering. Playbar updates the fastest. Chapter 45:59. When she woke up early in the morning, Chin Mo was no longer in the bedroom. Hee-hwan looked around, but didn't see him. She pursed her lips and sat up. After thinking for a moment, she put on a coat and went to Hee-hwan's room. After all, she hadn't been there last night when she had cried so hard. Well, it wasn't that she didn't want to go, but that Chin Mo wouldn't let her. Hee-hwan thought irresponsibly and walked to the door of the children's room. It was 8 o'clock in the morning. Usually, Hee-hwan would be up, but today, Hee-hwan had a feeling that she was still in the bedroom. As soon as she opened the door, she saw Shun-ting sitting by the bed, looking at Hee-hwan warmly. Hee-hwan hadn't woken up yet, which showed how late she had slept last night. Hee-hwan walked over quietly and said in a low voice, "Have you had breakfast?" Shun-ting only snapped out of his daze when she got closer. He immediately stood up and respectfully greeted her as Auntie. Then, he said that he had already had breakfast. Hee-hwan's gaze first fell on Hee-hwan's sleeping face for a while, and then she saw the original document on the bedside table. She knew that Shun-ting was a very self-disciplined boy. Amidst this self-discipline, he diverted a portion of his attention to Hee-hwan. Hee-hwan looked at Shun-ting and thought of the time when she and Chin Mo were young. Did he also take time out from his busy studies to take care of her like Shun-ting? Suddenly, Hee-hwan felt that Chin Mo hadn't had it easy. She seemed to have let him down for many years. She was lost in her thoughts. Shun-ting called her Annie twice before she came back to her senses. "What's wrong?" Shun-ting said seriously. "Hee-hwan is going to change back into a dress. Do you have any of her old clothes here?" Although he said that he wouldn't buy them, the little girl had been dreaming of dresses at night. What could he do? Hee-hwan was stunned for a moment, and then she couldn't believe it. But she quickly remembered. "I still have some in my apartment. How about you go and get them with me? Your uncle can take care of Hee-hwan at home." There was a deeper meaning behind her arrangement. Shun-ting would be living here in the future. Not only would he be spending time with a little kid like Hee-hwan, but he would also have to face her and Chin Mo. Hee-hwan was probably the most distant person in the family now. Therefore, she felt that she needed some time alone with him. Shun-ting was also a little surprised, but he quickly understood. "Okay, Auntie." Hee-hwan nodded and returned to her bedroom. She changed her clothes and went downstairs for breakfast before telling Chin Mo about it. Chin Mo thought about it for a moment and agreed. While tearing the bread, he asked calmly, "Do you want a chauffeur, or do you want to drive?" Hee-hwan had planned to ask her driver to drive her home, but she didn't expect Chin Mo to say that. Therefore, she immediately said that she would drive herself. Chin Mo then told Shun-ting to take good care of his aunt. Shun-ting wasn't surprised because he was a man, and it was natural for him to take care of a girl. On the contrary, Hee-hwan couldn't take it anymore. "Chin Mo, don't be like this. She's not your little nanny. I'll look down on you if you do this." Chin Mo and Shun-ting looked at each other. They actually had a tacit understanding between men. They even dared to look at each other and smile. Hee-hwan couldn't take it anymore. She glared at him and then said calmly to Shun-ting, "Don't be influenced by your uncle." Chin Mo immediately chuckled. "Don't listen to her. Your Annie likes me the most." Like new wife number 1. Hubby, addicted to spoiling. New wife number 1. Hubby, addicted to spoiling. It was the fastest to update. Chapter 45:61. Hee-hwan couldn't take it anymore. She glared at Chin Mo and took Shun-ting away. Before leaving, Hee-hwan said casually, "Shun-ting, you seem to be smiling." Shun-ting wanted to deny it, but Chin Mo nodded. "That's right, he's smiling." Shun-ting looked at them and realized that he couldn't afford to offend any of them. Chin Mo chuckled again and patted Shun-ting's shoulder. "Don't be afraid of your auntie. She still listens to me." Hee-hwan couldn't help but roll her eyes. "Don't listen to his nonsense." Shun-ting just smiled. Other than that, what else could he do? Hee-hwan took the car keys and walked out. Shun-ting and Chin Mo greeted each other and followed her. He was very easygoing and natural. Hee-hwan got into the car and said to Shun-ting while fastening her seatbelt, "Fasten your seatbelt." Even the back seat has to be fastened. Shunting nodded and fastened his seatbelt. Huan started the car and slowly drove out of the villa. About an hour later, they arrived at her old apartment. She brought Shunting upstairs. She pushed the door open. Because they hadn't lived there for a long time, the housekeeper who cleaned the apartment regularly had quit, so there was a thin layer of dust in the apartment. Huan went in and looked at Shunting. "Watch TV for a while. I'll go tidy up Huan's clothes." Shunting looked around and said briskly, "Let me do the cleaning, Auntie." Huan initially refused. She didn't want Shunting to do these things. But when she saw how natural Shunting was and didn't feel uneasy or ingratiating at all, she felt relieved. Actually, Shunting was very relaxed and took the initiative to participate in this family. Qin Mo and Huan were also very natural. She was the one who didn't feel natural. Huan smiled faintly and said, "That's fine too." Shunting went to get the cleaning tools. Huan saw that he was really capable and went to tidy up Huan's things with peace of mind. After tidying up, there were indeed quite a lot of things. There were 2 big boxes. Fortunately, he had a pulling pole, otherwise he wouldn't be able to carry them all. Shunting finished cleaning and came over to help Huan with her luggage, but Huan refused. Although Shunting was 170 pounds, he was still a kid, and he was very strong. Huan didn't say anything else. She followed him into the elevator and went downstairs to put the luggage in the trunk. Shunting had taken care of everything from beginning to end. Huan was very satisfied. He would have a little follower in the future. After getting into the car, before Huan started the engine, she said softly, "Get a driver's license when you're 18. Shunting immediately knew that Huan was in need of a driver. He nodded, and Huan started the car. When he returned to the villa, the people from the home furnishing company came over to deliver some of the things they had bought yesterday, including a set of bookcases and some decorations for Shunting's room. Little Huan was sitting there reading, her big eyes blinking as she held a thick book in her arms. Shunting went over and carried her down from the bookcase. "It's dangerous up there." Huan hugged a thick book and sat on the dark-colored bed to read. She looked like a little doll, and it was a beautiful male version. Shunting smiled gently and turned to tidy up his things. He was a boy who knew how to tidy up and was very clean. He was the complete opposite of Huan. New wife number 1, hubby addicted to spoiling. New wife number 1, hubby addicted to spoiling. My phone was the fastest to update. Chapter 4562. Huan liked to spray things everywhere, which gave Huan a headache. She had thought that it would be no problem for a child like Shunting to take care of Huan, but she had never thought that it was because of Shunting that Huan was so spoiled that she seemed to have no hands. The idiot in life was Qin Huan herself. After Shunting was done, he looked at the little girl and tugged at her hair. "I don't want to try on your clothes, so I brought them back." Huan's big head popped out of the book and looked at Shunting eagerly. After a long time, she moved her little body and said, "I want brother Shunting to go with me." Shunting's heart warmed. He gently ran his fingers through her hair and murmured, "Finally, I got it right for once." She used to call him brother, and she couldn't change it no matter what. Little Huan heard his murmur and raised her little head. "Brother, what are you talking about?" Shunting, after a long time, he exhaled and said, "Nothing. You're stupid." "How am I stupid? I'm obviously a smart baby." The little girl muttered discontentedly, "Brother is stupid." Shunting looked at her for a long time and suddenly said in a low voice, "Yes, I'm stupid." He had fallen in love with the little fool, so he had become even more stupid. However, little Huan didn't care about his little feelings. She was now wholeheartedly trying on her new clothes, no, the little skirt from before. Huan skipped away, and Shunting followed behind. He had a smile on his face, but also a little disappointed. The beginning was beautiful, but the process was unsatisfactory and the result was cruel. After a period of time, the little skirt that Huan used to wear was actually too small for her to wear. Even if she managed to put it on, it was still very tight. Little Huan stared at Shunting in the mirror and said, "Brother, you're lying. It doesn't look good at all." Shunting smiled and said, "It's too small." Little Huan scratched her short hair in annoyance. Then what should we do? Shinting was a very pragmatic boy. After thinking for a while, he quickly replied, I'll buy those clothes when they don't look good anymore. As soon as he finished speaking, Yihuan looked at him with an incredulous expression. Shinting smiled. What's wrong? Yihuan said angrily. Brother, you said you would buy me a new dress. You're lying. He couldn't help but laugh. I also said not to waste it, didn't I? He squatted down and talked to the little man. Up close, his heart was beating very fast. This little person was really too beautiful, especially the black and bright eyes, so pure and unguarded that they collided into his eyes. Shunting's fingers couldn't help but touch her eyelids again as he said in a low voice, You can buy one as a New Year's gift, okay? Even if it was just one, Qin Yihuan would be very happy. It didn't matter what she wore. What was important was that she urgently needed to prove that her beauty was still there. Because Shinting had promised Yihuan, he mentioned it to Qin Mo and Yihuan during lunchtime. Qin Mo and Yihuan were a little surprised by this. However, Shunting's behavior was doting and appropriate, so Qin Mo didn't have much to say. Moreover, Shunting was a big kid, and he wanted the two of them to spend more time together. Therefore, he decided to drive them there himself and wait in the parking lot. Later, when he told Yihuan about it upstairs, Yihuan smiled, hugged his neck, and kissed him. Papa Qin, don't you think you've gone too easy on her? It's unfair to Yi Xianan. Like new wife number 1. Hubby addicted to spoiling. New wife number 1. Hubby addicted to spoiling. My phone is the fastest to update. Chapter 4563. Later, when he told Yihuan about it upstairs, Yihuan smiled, hugged his neck, and kissed him. Daddy Qin, don't you think you've gone too easy on her? That's unfair to Yi Xianan. Qin Mo enjoyed it. He snatched a few more kisses and said, To a man, women are mostly accessories. The love of the men in the Yi family is very strange. So little Mrs. Qin, I don't dare to take risks. What do you think? After all, we only have one precious daughter. It's more reliable to raise a loyal husband. Don't you think so? Yihuan knew that he was right. This arrangement was definitely good for Yihuan. But what about Shinting? Shinting had entered their family, so she naturally treated Shinting as her own child. If there was such a day when Shinting was disappointed, she believed that she would be equally sad. Qin Mo understood what she was thinking. He sighed slightly. But for the future of the company, Shinting has to exist. I can't take the risk. A person who was persistent with Yihuan was the key to inheriting King Entertainment. When Shinting saw the look in Yihuan's eyes, he knew that Shinting was the person he was looking for, because he was all too familiar with that look. Yi Muyun, him, Qin Mo, Lan Yu, and Zhou Chengwang all had the same fervent look in their eyes. And this fervent look could support all the inhuman tests and bear the unknown outcome. It was cruel, but it was also fate's arrangement. Shinting knew it from the beginning and accepted it gladly. Why not? If he didn't try, he would never get it. He might as well take a gamble. This was a game and a gamble between the rich and powerful. It was a bet between men. Shinting accepted it. After Qin Mo's explanation, Yihuan was stunned for a long time. Then she pressed her face against Qin Mo's shoulder and didn't say anything for a long time. Qin Mo didn't say anything at first, but after a while, he couldn't help but chuckle. What's wrong? Seeing the kids like this, little Mrs. Qin wants to date too? Yihuan was still hugging him and sticking to him. Her voice was soft and obedient, as if she was trying to please him. She said in a low voice, Qin Mo, aren't we dating every day? Qin Mo was a little surprised. He was also a little surprised as he looked down at her. Yihuan, on the other hand, was a little embarrassed. She buried her face and turned to the other side, looking very embarrassed. Qin Mo laughed. Didn't you confess boldly just now? Why are you like this now? Like a turtle hiding its head in its shell. Yihuan buried her little face in the other side. Wherever he went, she would run to the other side. As she ran, he caught up with her and kissed her. Just as they were playing sweetly, Shinting came over with Yihuan. It was Yihuan who wanted to set off. However, her father and mother, who were making out, forgot to close the door, so the little baby opened her eyes wide and looked at them eagerly. Shinting was actually shocked. He didn't expect such a scene. After being stunned for a moment, he immediately covered little Yi Huan's eyes to prevent her from looking. However, little Yi Huan still peeked through his fingers. Shinting had no choice but to immediately pick up the little girl and bring her to his bedroom, ready to educate her. However, before he could educate her, Yi Huan looked at him with a very old face and said very slowly, "Papa, Mommy kissed you. Brother, why is your face so red?" Like new wife number 1. Husband, I'm addicted to spoiling. New wife number 1. Husband, I'm addicted to spoiling. Play bar was the fastest to update. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.